It is incredible that Pakistan actually used bolts to splice the broken rear axle. Only 4 bolts were used to fix the 2 sections of the rear axle. After the master's superb welding skills, this rear axle can pull 50 tons again. The 3-wheeled vehicle in front is pulling the rear axle of this train. Because the local master's skills are not good enough, he directly cut it in half. The back couldn't be connected anyway, so he had to drive 10 kilometers to the town. There was not only fast food, but also masters with more advanced skills. Since the fracture surface had been completely processed before, the repair shop's work this time was to splice the two. Since the cut surface was in the center of the rear axle, the center frame dedicated to the future axle could not be counted on. The master directly welded a bolt at the fracture. It is not cheap to splice the rear axle. It is safer to weld one on each side. If the color of the 2 sections of the rear axle is matched, the other side of the bridge also needs to be welded. The welding position does not need to be consistent with the other side, so the masters have to consider the welding position of the nuts on the other side. The same height will temporarily connect the two. At the same time, the master in the village was also learning seriously, because the stability and degree of docking were the problems he had been unable to solve for a long time. At this time, the town was in a state of difficulty. Although it was difficult for other masters, they also needed a little time to dock. Afterwards, the master screwed all the fixing bolts to the bottom. The purpose of doing this was to facilitate the positioning of the other rear axle. The angle of the nut did not affect the screwing of the bolt. Therefore, the master could only screw the nut on the bolt first. After the master's professional thumb measurement method, it could be welded. After single-point welding, the position of the ram was fixed. Afterwards, tighten all the bolts with a wrench. At this time, the gap between the 2 rear axles will gradually narrow. The gap between the manual docking and the tightening of the bolts is definitely incomparable. After all the bolts are screwed in place, the rear axle differential and the color of the already spliced joints are close. Such operations amaze the master in the village, just like a frog in a well seeing the world again. At this time, the rear axle can be flipped through the center frame. The remaining 2 bolts do not need to be checked at all. After the bolts are screwed in place, welding can be done directly. Basically, it will not move. After all are fixed, tighten both sides with a wrench at the same time. In this way, the upper and lower sides will not deviate due to tightening first. Then use a steel spoon to measure the warp plane. In order to avoid concentricity problems after welding, the master also needs to use a drawing needle to measure the shaft heads on both sides. The bolts look like the color of the splicing is close, but the actual splicing effect still needs to be measured to be accurate. After the work is done, the splicing surface of the rear axle is welded. After the master is very professional, the gap on the outside has been welded. These positioning bolts are useless. After opening, use the wolf head to smash it directly, so a straight line is in the center of the rear axle. The master changes the direction of the crack on the shell. After the cardboard is marked, a triangle is cut out with a chair. Afterwards, the burrs on the edge are polished with an angle grinder. Then use a piece of integrated steel plate for cutting. When the color is connected, the seam is close. Although it looks like one steel plate is replaced with another, the cracks between them are gone. Even if it breaks again, it will not tear from the wound. Then use a piece of integrated steel plate for cutting. When the color is connected, the seam is close. Although it looks like one steel plate is replaced with another, the cracks between them are gone. Even if it breaks again, it will not tear from the wound.